We've built a world of limitless video. By the intelligence behind it, it's still organized around titles and tags. A system built for yesterday's TV and internet, not for today's audiences with a personal agent in the hand. 12 Labs is changing that. Quietly, they became one of the most advanced solutions in video AI, building models that don't just see the frame, but understand storylines, themes, emotions, that deeper context and meaning inside the frame. And as media companies sit on vast archives that remain underused and undervalued, that shift from searching to understanding by machines will become the next major productivity and commercial unlock. Today, we explore that shift with Maninder Saini, Head of Growth at 12 Labs. Maninder, welcome to Media Unscripted.
Hi, Annie. It's great to be here.
Let's dive straight in. For decades, video has been treated as sets of clips and timestamps. And 12 Labs is showing that it can now be understood through AI models that grasp the meaning behind each frame. From your perspective, on the growth side of this new industry, what does that shift mean for the media content companies you're speaking to every day?
There are some pretty big implications of that transformation. To start, let's look at, thinking about the traditional approach to making sense of and organizing large volumes of video data. Say traditionally you may have an archive, or even if you have like smaller corpuses of content coming in, say from a production, or you may have like a suite of advertisements, you typically would tag it with a simple metadata taxonomy, say a specific actor or a specific action. For sports, it might be like a goal happened here, there's an offside. That is a very shallow understanding of the actual content itself. I mean, think about it. You watch content, you don't think about like, there was this thing that happened, there's now this person. You are experiencing the audio, the visual, what we call the spatial temporal context, which is just the things happening over space and time in the content. You understand that in totality, not in isolation by modality. And that really is the core differentiator of what we do and what is the big change is coming now. Instead of going from rudimentary tagging, we're now transitioning over to actual meaning. So imagine instead of having a very shallow understanding of this person is here, this thing happened, actually understanding things like narrative arc, understanding character development, understanding the most emotionally evocative moments, whether that's for sports content or for cinematic content and beyond. And that's a very big change. Like imagine you're a sports organization that has more than 100,000 hours of content. You don't really care about like player action. You care about, tell me all the times the fans went wild, because that is really the most interesting aspects of your content. Tell me about, say you're an actual sports strategy coach person. You might want to watch the entire history of Annie and all of her strategy and goals and how I work for her. So when it comes to the media supply chain, content production ecosystem, there's some pretty big implications for this. One really strategic implication is now archives aren't a cost center. They become a strategic asset. There's so many organizations.
Yeah, this is it. Many broadcasters and right holders are sitting on huge archives that just aren't searchable or monetized effectively. So how much value do you see trapped there? And are you even able to quantify it when you talk to clients in the conversations around unlocking it?
Absolutely. It's a great question. We call this metadata hydration because oftentimes these massive archives, people will know, hey, this is this season, or this is this, project, or this is this show, but they don't have necessarily asset or scene level understanding of what's going on. So imagine from a content licensing perspective, this turns these storage cost centers, we've talked to studios where they have literally content sitting on film drives in a warehouse somewhere and they don't know what to do with it. They're like, oh yeah, this is from that thing from the 70s or whatever. And they know there's value in it, but the activation energy to actually go extract the value from it and surface the moments that matter is too high to do anything with it.
I had a pleasure of working on a very short project with BBC Archives, and the hunting for tapes and hunting for snippets of information was just full-time job, frankly. But But I guess now, instead of hunting for footage, teams suddenly have answers at their fingerprints, fingertips even. So from your perspective, how does this meaning-based intelligence actually change the way people work day to day, the editors, producers, marketeers, the rights teams as well?
Massively. So I think there's two big implications. One is when you know what you're looking for, like you
Mm.
said, it removes the drudgery of finding things of like, oh, I know it's maybe in this bin, in this thing at minute 17, and then you sit there scrubbing through so much content to find the actual relevant moment. One, it just radically accelerates that process because you can, in natural language, for whatever you're searching for, whether certain camera shot types or whether certain individuals, you can just find the thing you're looking for across modalities, not just simple transcription, but actions, intent, all these things that really matter for storytelling. But then there's another category of implication, which is you don't know what's in there, but you know what you want. Meaning, I might not know what's in 1,000 hours of archival content or some raw footage from a shoot, but I want to find when, say, this actor was in this situation, or maybe something that was a very heartwarming moment, or maybe something that was a very controversial call or thing that occurred. You want to surface the pertinent things and then have a look at what are your options in the creative process. And I think that second category is really the overlooked aspect of how it can radically accelerate storytelling and content creation. And
Yes.
editorial folks absolutely love that ability to find the things that they know what they generally want, but they don't know if it exists, and being able to surface the options against it. Does that make
Well, they
sense?
can play now with the the whole vaults of content and stories, and just see what they can surface in different playlists, in different box sets, I guess. I in the previous video some time ago, or maybe it was an article, I gave an example of to make point how invisible content is with metadata. An audience prompting an AI agent in their hand of, I would love to watch something tonight with my teenagers. Hopefully, it will be nice, warm courtroom drama full of banter, but I will not feel embarrassed. That's a valid prompt.
Very valid prompt. And I've been in that situation all the time. I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood content, and I
Oh,
have
I
like
love
parents
Bollywood.
that, yeah, there's some really great stuff. And, sometimes there's certain things you want to watch with your family and certain things you really want to avoid. And this is the perennial problem of like, oh no, this is really awkward to see with my parents. You like get up and run out of the room. And to your point, like that is like having that contextual awareness of what you want over the entirety of the content type, and then having thematic inputs as well. It's a pretty big unlock, not just for the content creation, but to your point, on the content consumption side as well. It gives users a lot more power over their ability to pick and choose what they want to look at.
Absolutely. But you're entering the enterprise layer, I think, beautifully as well. So your integration with Amazon Bedrock
Mhm.
moves 12 Labs from a specialist AI tool to something that sits sort of cleanly inside a broadcaster's existing tech stack by default. So what does that do to perception and adoption of AI, especially for companies that want AI capability but fear operational complexity, but fear AI and big change?
Yeah, it's a huge unlock for us to be able to partner
Mm.
with AWS and Amazon Bedrock. Like you said, it makes the deployment super easy. It's like, oh, your infrastructure is running on AWS. Well, if you go to Amazon Bedrock, you can easily deploy the models into your existing stack, and all the security, the governance, the compliance, it is all good to go. So you don't have to do
Yeah.
a separate procurement and legal process to make this work. But then also, what's really helpful on our end is in addition to the enterprise credibility and the distribution we get with the AWS teams, it actually is a great partnership for us because we're able to go deeper and collaborate from the product and infrastructure side with the AWS teams to deliver specific solutions that the customers really need. So as opposed to being a outside vendor coming in to try to fit into the existing stack, we
Yeah.
become part of the existing stack, which I think is very, very important in the enterprise sales cycle. So it's not just random science experiment someone's running because they're interested in being able to see what AI tools can do.
Yes.
It actually is like real end user workloads and real business impact, we're able to capture that much faster.
And especially that nowadays, talking to few technologists in broadcasting TV, there's so many AI tools appearing on the market. All those things calmed down a little bit, I think. But there was a moment where it's like every week different tool. So they were not committing themselves by default to one tool long term when they're committed to AWS, I think. But you've got also Snowflake's investment, which I think is another brilliant opportunity and move. And the ability to run 12 labs inside of Snowflake's AI data cloud, it's a strong signal that video is being treated as data, not just content, not just the storytelling. So do you see that shift happening among your clients, the TV media companies, the video to data thinking shift? Or is this still too disruptive of an idea for most content owners who are wedded to the notion of a creative output rather than ones and zeros?
Yeah, I think yes and no. So I would say some. So to your point, yes, the implication of collaboration with organizations like Snowflake and their investment in us is a vote of confidence that
Mm.
hey, anywhere that there's massive corpuses of video data, there are things you can be doing with it. Whether that's the search and retrieval to surface things, whether that's the better content monetization of archives you might have. So generally, macro trend, it validates what our hypothesis has been from the beginning. So it's awesome to collaborate with the Snowflake team and then have their vote of confidence. To your question about like, hey, how do the end users feel about this? Like I mentioned earlier, from the business perspective, oftentimes companies don't know what to do with this corpus of content. It's like we have this archive, we don't know what to do with it. With the tool like 12 Labs, they could better monetize it. So they're actually very excited to be able to revisit old things. I love this example. We're talking to one of the studios, and they're saying that for them to find the relevant New York skyline shot from like say B-roll, it sometimes is faster for them to just reshoot it than to go find it in the archive, which is crazy. But like if you think about the hours it takes to go find the needle in the haystack, that's a huge implication for them. So from the creative perspective, I don't think there's any concern or any aversion to, oh, we now have structured data. Because I think people can see and appreciate that, like in most environments, text and even images have become pretty structured data. A trick I always like to use is like, hey, if you go to your mobile phone, open your phone app, try to search for stuff, you can find images very well, but it's not going to find video very well. And I think that's like a very kind of visceral way to understand what the implications are at the enterprise. Does that make
No,
sense?
it's huge. Yes, it does make sense. And also you mentioned the difference between the opening the phone for the photos versus video. It's actually the whole LLM universe is based on text, but not
Hmm?
video. I mean, that's the sort of relatively underdeveloped area where you sit. I don't think that there's a huge amount of competition yet. When AI genuinely becomes part of the stack, certain tasks and certain bits of operations and bottlenecks will disappear entirely. So what do you think will quietly vanish from video workflows first?
I would say it is the aspects of their jobs that folks often don't enjoy. So we work a lot in the studio TV space, and we often talk to creatives. And I found that if the conversation starts with, "Oh, you're an AI company," they're like, "Oh, gross! Like we don't want to use AI. We actually think you guys don't appreciate our craft and how we work." So if once we move past that conversation, and we're like, "Oh, well." Do you enjoy going through, say, entire shot lists and finding the specific thing that matters and spending hours scrubbing through lots of content? The answer is obviously no, they don't enjoy that. It's like, oh, okay, well, our model can help accelerate that workflow. We have a customer, it's the Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment Group. They own the Toronto Raptors, Toronto Maple Leafs, and they have a workflow where before they wanted to do some sort of fan engagement content, say for social media, they would have the creatives come up with a storyboard. They would send that to the media operations team. The media operations team goes and looks across game state content, fan
Yeah.
engagement, behind the scenes content, interview content, gets a shot list together and gives a storyboard. Editor then puts together a rough cut. That process, we timed it, typically took them
Yes.
about 3 to 4 days of work. And now with their models, if you can give the right queries, because they have a lot of their archive indexed across our content, they're able to give the storyboard and the relevant queries, and our models are able to give them the rough cut in 9 minutes. So imagine what took 4 days to do, now you can do in 9 minutes. And now
Nine
to your
minutes.
question, exactly. So
So
now if you
what
think
took
about
you
your
so
question,
long? Soon they will be saying.
exactly. So like to your question, it's like what will secretly disappear? It's the ping pong back and forth between departments. So like don't like this, don't
Yes.
like that, or like, oh, give me like a day to find this relevant thing. And then the implication of that is they can actually focus on the storytelling. So say I am a huge Toronto Raptors fan and Annie doesn't even watch basketball. That fan engagement piece for the both of us is very different. So they're running social ads. The content for Annie is going to be very different for the content for Maninder. So now they can actually do content personalization at scale for different audiences, and that actually frees them up to do better storytelling for all their
So
different
yes, that sort of brings my thinking into the audience experience. So because until 12 Labs or similar systems, forgive me, there might be few out of there breathing on your neck. Before 12 Labs sit inside every content vault, discovery still runs on metadata in majority
Mhm.
of this very traditional industry. So when meaning-based intelligence is finally in place, what will that allow TV platforms to deliver to audiences that simply isn't possible today? And you mentioned personalization, and that sort of triggered my thinking. But what else?
Yeah, so personalization is a huge frontier that we see a lot of activity in. You touched on it earlier. You can surface customer experiences where they have a lot more specificity and control about the content they consume. So it could be thematic. So instead of having rudimentary search around like title names or doing similarity searches of like, oh, if you've seen this piece of content, you might like X, Y, and Z, you being able to describe specifically. Or now we're seeing customers being able to build user experiences where, if you're sitting on a TV, it might be hard to, with your remote input stuff. But if you have a really rich understanding, you can create product experiences where you have AI enabled rich search across content built into the experience of wherever application or smart TV use case you're looking at. So in terms of what the consumer experience looks like, we can get content that's more pertinent to us with the control of the creators. We can also have the ability to find what we want in that moment, because the algorithm might perceive that Annie might like this piece of content, but Annie may have had a bad day and she might want to have a little pick me up, and she might want to search very specifically for what she wants to watch or a specific emotional tone. With our tools, uh, creators and platforms can build those experiences for their consumers.
Yes, because once AI shapes how we, the audiences, discover the content and how the content is served to us, the next shift is how we experience itself, how we consume it, and then also how creators work with this. Because if video understanding becomes an sort of infrastructure capability, it won't just change workflows and industry and the viewing experience. But what shifts do you expect audiences to feel first, even if they don't know AI is behind it, other than I can now search with a very convoluted, complex prompt and something will pop up? I mean, will we really feel the difference?
I think the analogy I would think about is the difference in consumption experience in the music streaming world over the last, say, 10 to 15 years. I think a similar phenomenon will happen. Well, I'm nostalgic for the world in which I used to buy CDs, burn them, have MP3s in my music player on my computer. These days, I stream content. And I would say my ability to discover new and interesting music is far superior than what it was, say, 20 years ago. And while I think initially there was a bit of a shift, I've adapted to that shift. And now I far prefer the ease with which I can find new artists, interesting musical experiences, things I otherwise never would have come across. Because if I'm buying a physical record or a CD, and then just in that domain on the album and artist level, it becomes harder. And one of the implications of the streaming world for music has been a pretty big explosion in content creation. So now it opens up the possibility for new content types, new creators, new artists to be able to produce what otherwise would have been really hard for them to get distribution or attention. So I think thinking from like an overall supply chain perspective, if we start from the beginning of creation, I think it increases the ability and the accessibility of content creation and the distribution of it. And then as a consumer, I think we will have the opportunity to consume content types that we hadn't anticipated that we would like. And I think that is a pretty reasonable like kind of projection into the future, maybe like 3-5 years down the line.
But then you mentioned content creation, and that sort of sparks the overall concept of creativity. So how do you see AI helping organizations scale without eroding the storytelling quality and the creativity that audiences expect?
Yeah, it's a great perspective. I would reiterate, we help existing creators and existing content owners to accelerate their workflows. So it lowers the barrier to access. Like to go back to the content personalization example, people have been talking about content personalization for a very long time now, but to be able to practically do it has been beyond us. So I don't see it necessarily as like, how do you scale this? Will there be any compromise in storytelling? But our position is it will enhance storytelling. Because again, if you're a super fan of something, don't watch it at all. Maybe a third person likes one specific angle, like a specific actor or a specific player. The content type they want to consume is going to be very different. The easy example people understand is around sports. Say you have a football match between Poland and England. The highlight reel today of that is going to be just one highlight reel of the match. But a Poland fan is going to want a different highlight reel than the England fan. A super fan of a player is going to want a different cut of that same highlight reel. So it's not about, are there implications about scaling storytelling? It's about, now we can deliver storytelling for a diverse set of audiences, specifically what they want. And in that ought to be more emotionally resonant for those end users.
Yeah, so it feels like less replacing creativity, but more extending the reach of it in a more personalized way or targeted way. Before we wrap, let me put a few rapid fire questions to you. You are allowed to answer in one sentence. You can try in one word if you can. So the biggest misconception you still hear about video intelligence?
That you still need tags to be able to use it. I try to keep it a one sentence, but I'll expand upon it. People really like tags, but I often say, like, if you think about it, if you can just search in natural language, you don't need tags. So it's funny, sometimes people will use our models to produce more tags, and they're happy to do that. But to me, it's kind of it's funny. Tags are a means to an end. If we give you the end, you need the means still. So yes, that would be one misconception.
Now you reminded me. I used to work for Publicis Production some time ago, and I'm not going to name the DAM, the digital asset management, the vault of content for the audiences who might not know. But yes, I did think about like, whoa, this is the semantic tagging that this thing had as part of its out of the box. So yeah, I completely understand. This is the concept. Okay, one media innovation that genuinely excites you right now. It doesn't have to be about AI and have to be in video. It can be in personal life as well.
One AI innovation that's exciting.
Media innovation.
Oh, media innovation.
You're also an audience and consumers of media. So what excites you right now the most?
I'm going to be annoying and give an answer about what we do because I am excited about it. I'm really excited about the new content types that are going to be unlocked with the ability of multimodal understanding. Like we talked about earlier, I think now there is a lower cost to access and entry for a whole host of different content types, not just in the traditional enterprise and media landscape, but also for, say, smaller content creators. So I'm really excited to see the proliferation of content types and see what sort of awesome new stuff we can consume in the coming years.
Yeah, that's actually, you're right. Especially the content moving and sort of being present, the same IP present on different types of screens to tap into different audiences' attention. I think that, I'm very excited about next year in media. That's 100%. And the last question, a hard lesson from building and implementing deep tech like yours inside a traditional industry. other than trying to get into the overall AWS stack that they already have?
Yeah, a very tough lesson is you have to understand the vertical. You have to
Mm.
appreciate the craft. People don't care about your academic benchmarks or what technical spec sheet you have. They care about the solution that you deliver to them, and you can't deliver the solution to them if you don't understand their specific pain points, how they work, and what they need. So for me, the last 2 years in working here has been a huge lesson in learning media workflows, learning the media ecosystem, understanding all the players, the value chain of content, the different distribution platforms and mechanisms. So very hard lesson. You can't just show up and be like, hey, we have the best video understanding model. No one cares. You have to show up with like, I would love to understand your pain points. I think we have a solution that could serve what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, it reminds me when I turned up with post-editing product placement to Coronation Street producers. Coronation Street is like the longest opera in the UK, and
Hmm.
yeah, they nearly fainted. I nearly fainted afterwards. Maninder, thank you so much. A brilliant conversation, and what you're building is reshaping how we understand and experience video. And it's been a pleasure having you on Media Unscripted. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Annie. Take care.